12 sets in. How you doing? 12 sets in. Did about 2 or 3 hours. I did a 2-hour live just cooking and walking. Did the 12 sets. Now we're back in this one. We're walking again. Until we burn all that fat, the oxidative stress takes priority. When I say that, I've trained myself to go get some vitamin C and then do betaine. Way higher. Yeah, so citrulline with arginine. What do we have? And 2 vitamin C's. 2,000 milligrams. And then I'm going to do 2 more scoops of trimethylglycine for 3,000 milligrams. So that will put me exactly at 8,000. Seems like 8,000's been the way to go. I think that's what I did yesterday. Either way, it gives me the shits. That's a good thing when you're on carnivore and you're almost a month in. We're gonna say I'm a month in because that's, and then I'm gonna take a few drops of 40,000 volts, literally like maybe 10 drops, 10, 12 drops. So that's got magnesium, it's got boron, it's got sodium, potassium, and chloride. We just did 12 sets. That workout is up on the channel, and I'm gonna go back and probably do another workout if I don't throw up. I've been really feeling nauseous lately. I'm going into the lactic acid cycle system because I'm so deep into ketosis. My body's going, where's the carbs? That's why all my fat is sitting out here drooping. My organ fat is diminishing very quickly. And so everything I've got left is like this little bit of frumpy fat. Like I know my body, I've done this so many times. 55, 56, I've been doing this stuff on and off, and sometimes way too on, like too long, too hard. I've been 230 pounds, rock solid. I've got pictures to prove that. I've been all natural. I've been well acute in all things AAS and PEDs, and been out of shape, and I show myself as a fat old man there too. And what you'll trip out on is you'll go, wait a minute, this was last year and this was 5 years ago. You look like you're 5 years older in this. And it's a testament to how you can just turn the clock back with when you focus on certain things, like your skin. The same thing holds true for your skin health as any other organ, right? You take in plenty of olive oil, lots of vitamin C, right? Try to get things in that, like omega-3s, but from natural sources, right? And then we supplement with the rest, like with the supplement that I just showed you. That's an amazing supplement. Why did they do that? Why did the liquid mineral companies back off the full spectrum colloidal minerals? Same reason that blackstrap molasses, right, is not popular. Once you condense all these things, there's arsenic in the actual blackstrap molasses. The benefits do not outweigh the negatives, and now that we're in the world, the age of science and vetting and testing, right, going to infrared or inter-rater reliability testing, double-blind studies, and then computer AI goes back and does its own in-depth, detailed research, and that's the missing component, right? So now we know what something's made of, what it's comprised of. And in my opinion, this just makes proteinfactory.com stand out among the rest. I don't get paid for that. Alex doesn't even really know of me, but he'd probably go through his invoices and go, oh yeah, this guy ordered from me 25 years ago, right? And he has got some amazing products. I can't afford it right now. The last time I bought it was from him was probably 5 years ago, but he's way ahead of the curve. He's on with the beat powder, powder nitric oxide boosters made out of, and Tom DeLure just did a whole expose on a lot of these things. He comes to the game late and he just keeps recirculating the same information over and over and over. Who knows what that guy's on. I don't like him. I don't like Tom DeLure. I actually think he's a piece of shit. Like, I can spot a piece of shit from a mile away. Do I still listen to him? Yeah. But I tend to like to watch Paul Saladino. And what I end up seeing is Tom DeLure rips everyone off. He acts like a know-it-all, but what he is a chameleon. He tries to be like everyone else. I don't like to watch people like that. I like mavericks. I like people who are on the cutting edge of things, Not people who are just rebels just to be rebels. But they have, like, this is going off on a beaten track, but is it? Because that's what this channel's about. This channel is about, and first and foremost, looking at the truth. Operation GCD with J.J. Vance. I mean, looking at your history, looking at your genealogy, looking at what these forefathers were really all about. Last night he had this great live stream. Yeah, check him out, Operation GCD. Dude's cool, he's doing it all from his RV. He's directly, so he got me thinking about it and digging back into this, and now I actually am a candidate. Not that I'm bragging about it, because I'm so anti-patriotic in so many ways, and sometimes I have to look at myself in the mirror and go, dude, are you communist? No. But when you really look at it, you're going, okay, the true structure, and I'm not going to get into it because I don't align myself with Marxism or any of that, but they want you to box yourself in where there's a fine line there, right? And the forefathers laid all this out. So J.J. Vance, he gets into talking about George Washington. Well, my family, my direct lineage, Philip Marsteller, if you want to look it up, was not only a business associate of Washington's, he was the only one in the pallbearer. So there were two pallbearers that were Marstellers that were carrying George Washington's. And this isn't going to be a diatribe or soliloquy that is about me and my patronage and lineage. I don't fucking care about that. I can't stand my family or a bunch of suck-ups. I have wanted to meet more of the Marsteller kin or clan, not to make it sound like some white supremacist statement, because it's not. My other family, my grandfather born down in Mexico. So I got this Bundesstaat, Germany-based, but I've been doing deep dives on this, and I've done a lot of talks about this, so I'm not going to bore you with the details, or rather really bore myself with it, because I've talked about it so much, but I'll be talking about it in the future. This is more or less about a recovery walk. We did 3 miles in the morning. We did 12 steps in the other room. I showed 10 of those steps. My audio was off. I don't know if my audio is even working right now. Is my audio good? Oh, Mike, oh, thanks. I don't know what's wrong with it. Let me take a look. Let me see. It's supposed to be working. Oh, it is now? All right. Test. Yeah, so I don't know, what do you want to talk about? So I'm kind of bored with myself. When I come back, you tell me what you want to talk about and we'll talk about it. We can hear you. That message was from a bit ago. Okay. I don't know what's going on with this soundbite. Like, can you hear me over here? Can you hear me? Hello? Really well? You're helping me out. I appreciate it. Good. Nothing negative, that's good enough. All right, so we're gonna be doing indoor walking. I like to layer this up on the underclass podcast, what they've been talking about as far as Hitler and him hearing voices, and this is well established, and him getting basically the type of things that you find Nikola Tesla talking about, where he got direct interface messages. Elon Musk has said so much where he's like, his brain's just exploding with ideas. And look at his mother and the occult connections there. It's really bizarre, right? And this leads you toward Epstein and all this stuff. But what I like to do is, instead of going off on some tangential, disharmonious, assumptive trail, I love how Operation GCD and the Underground podcast, as well as the Gray Pill podcast. Look all those up. And then there's Heidi Love, if you haven't watched her. But there are some really amazing deep dive, and I've missed a few. There's one, God, what's the name of his channel? Something Purge, right? Something The Purge. It's like his name in The Purge. And I've really been getting so much insight from these people, like JJ Vance, who's running his operation from his RV. Like, he's literally like a veteran who's running his operation from an RV and doing, you know, he's got terrible, like me, I don't know how well my signal's coming in, but he's doing this all on a shoestring. And I've got so much respect for these people because they're able to come up with this information. And they're it's kind of like, did you ever watch Secure Team 10 back in the day? How he would just stay up all night. He would even call it like the insomnia team, right? Where he's just staying up all night, coming out with one after the other. And I was backing that guy up for years, all the years that he was being accused of things, whether or not it was true or not. And then he was basically cancel cultured about 5 years ago. And I remember just sending him messages when everything was negative. That, dude, you already have 2 million subscribers, which I don't think he's even gotten more than a few thousand more subscribers since back then. But what I kept insisting on that he focused on was the positives, that he has already amassed a huge archive of information that people haven't even come into the ability to be able to absorb and fathom what these reoccurring orbs mean. What, you know, Crow 777, if you aren't familiar with that one, he bounced off of YouTube around the same time, maybe a little before, really around 2017. And YouTube was just like profiling his ass. And he's a really intelligent guy. And his work is even left a little suspicious because he was taking these lunar images, and he was famous several years ago, if you remember this, for there being like this transposed, so his conjecture, but a lot of the people that watched these said, oh wow, the moon is fake. We have this high-tech equipment that's able to interface and look at this wave that's going across the moon. Then other people came forward and said, that was debunked a long time ago. I have the same exact camera and it does exactly the same thing. All it's doing is trying to scan and read, right? So his work is solid, right? And it's Jason, I don't remember who his partner is, but very inquisitive, very intelligent guys, but he ended up getting, you know, the same type of refraction and the same negative backing into a corner that Tyler from Secure Team did, where he got targeted because he was sloppy, right? And Tyler was sloppy too. He was arrested. He went through some problems with an ex of his, but he's grown up. He lost his father in the process and really grieved over that, stepped away, but people were still watching his really high quality equipment. You gotta remember, these people aren't saying they're superhuman. They're not even saying that they're upstanding people. I don't think they're not, but I'm just saying they're not claiming that. They just are coming out with information that's pertinent as an open source archive that really, OpenAI is the benefactor to this. And it just feeds back into this sort of Operation Gladio, the CIA covert system. But the CIA is just a front now. It's kind of like these movie sets, right? It's like CIA, and you look behind it and there's nothing there, and there's just like this frame of an empty domicile. And the FBI is probably even worse, and we know why those were created. That's why I love the deep dives that J.J. Vance does, like Ed Edwards, right? And some of these lesser known serial killers. There's a lot of deep dives and speculations into these programmed killers, right? And it may seem boring, but Charles Manson is still one of those premier people where there's so much information that it's almost like, look, here it is, it's dangling here. You can go back into the CIA archives. And then the surprising thing is AJ with the Y files. That guy's, he's always on it, right? He's always on it. And he's really able, he's got a whole team now, and they're going deep, you know? They're going deep. I've looked up, do you ever go to the bottom of the Y files videos that are on specific subjects and go down there and click onto the CIA archives? And like the Kozarev mirror, that was something that I just did a deep dive into. Or the underground caverns that lead from the Grand Canyon, they say, right? From the Grand Canyon back to the deserts around California. And that there's a whole underground system around the entire world. And then obviously leads into Tartaria. Gets into the thing that's really popular right now that Stellium 7 has been looking into for years. And that is what he originally was beginning to notice is like the Titans, these massive elephants, basically, woolly mammoth type creatures, and how he'd go into these and study the caverns and the caves around these mountainous areas, and they're so numerous that you can't really even just look at one. I mean, it's like the number of mounds around the world, right, where giants are buried underneath. And not to go off on a side trail, but a lot of the newspaper reports that go back to Pennsylvania, where my family entered the U.S. from Pfungstadt, Germany, and why supposedly my family came here to the 13 colonies, along with many others from Germany, and became indentured servants or slaves, right? And even mercenaries, right? Because there was like 100-year war that was promulgated by witchcraft, right? So you can see how they've been messing with people, and I'm not substantiating or debunking witchcraft. I always go toward technology. Like if you ever get into Nathaniel J. Gillis's work, and you see how he looks into this witch or literature, and he'll see over and over again that these witches think that they're doing these necromancy rituals, that they're having sexual intercourse with these with the deceased, right? And that they're still trying to get the excretions. Like this is a thing, this happens. I know it's gross, I'm not going deep into that, but what I'm saying, you know, you get into things that are like the red rite rituals, if you've ever heard of that. Many other things that get into very dark grimoire type information, that you got to be ready to go into this stuff. And even more so, understand that when you're reading this stuff and you're going into that mind, that you're part of that mimetic code. Weird ass shit happened to me just reading Lovecraft, because that's part of what we were talking about before, where it gets into the auto writing aspects to this, you know, where there's a communication occurring. Is this technology, is this a pre-existent codified system? I talk about Konrad Zuse, I talk about Alan Turing, even Jacobo Greenberg, right? And a person that you could turn to on Substack is Jason Risa Giorgiani, who puts up several amazing long articles that you can actually push and have a really nice reader read off to you, right? And I'll often fall asleep listening to this, and then sometimes listen to it again and again because he's so articulate, right? But he got into looking at this whole computational system, and he's talked about this before, where there's like this upper cap or this upper shelf to information and how it ties directly into entropy, the totality of the enthalpy of the energy as information, and that we can reach this this mass cap where there's too much information stored, and it literally causes. So there's some people that are of the school of thought that say that this is what this was what ended Atlantis, right? And that caused this huge cataclysm. And so this links directly into what I was talking about with Stellium-7 and what's become really popular on many other channels right now, where people are not only just looking at the titans, these massive woolly mammoth elephants, seeing the physiology inside as they go and research these areas, but Stellium-7 brings up hundreds upon hundreds, if not thousands, of these heart stones, where the valves are there. Everything is there. The physiology is completely intact. And now they're starting to really look at things that look like faces, bodies, right? And going in and cutting this. The pink salt, the Himalayan salt, and the salt mines, they're beginning to look closer at these and go, wait, it looks like flesh, it looks like fat, it looks like this perfectly constructed, and we're cutting it out of this, and it looks like this type of fat. Let's just blend in a total hypothesis and say that it is. What part of the body would this be? People are going in so deep to this right now that it's starting to blow their minds, right? That there was a race of giants, right? And that there was a massive cataclysm. You got to wonder, where the fuck do we come from? Then blend that in with Tartaria and this whole underground system, right? And I've believed, and I've seen this, I've seen the orbs, I've seen a craft close up that's cloaked about 4 years ago. Like, I saw it coming to me, saw it with total detail. The things, like, to describe it is, I actually reported this to MUFON, and then in 1991 I saw these orbs that were taking up the entire skyline. And I've never jumped to the conclusion that these are aliens. Not once. In fact, they show up in such an ominous way at certain times in your life that you can't remove what's going on, the algorithm of you, from what's going on outside of you. You know, like the whole idea of a paracosm, an unhealthy fixation where you're just sort of stuck in the conjecture of your own mind, right? And really how Carl Jung and Freud completely deceived us, right? That they were being channeled, they were being talked to, just like Aleister Crowley, just like all these contemporary people, but even more so the people that you would think absolutely were not, like what I was talking about with Hitler, already dead. It's the Already Dead podcast, the Great Pill podcast, and the Underclass. Look that up and then punch in Hitler, because you're going to be blown away when you begin to. So I love these channels because they're hungry. They really want to know. There's great camaraderie and communication with the viewers. The viewers are often going, wait, this person is so articulate, has this passion. They only have 1,000 subs or a few hundred subs or whatever it is. Why don't I jump in and start my own? And then there's the encouragement of going, yeah, go for it. Like, if you can come out with something, then you realize that you have a specialty in a certain area. Even if it's just looking into your own lineage, that's all that matters. Like, if you are a specialist that looks into your own genealogy, that has value. That means something. Because do you know that your genealogy matches up perfectly with others' genealogy? And so you can go to your maternal side or paternal side and begin to investigate. And one of the best tools right now is ChatGPT. Believe it or not. ChatGPT will send messages off, like for me, in my case, to Bundesstadt, Germany, get the messages back on my behalf, and then tell me what it's found out. I've been doing this for months with it. And I've traced my family lineage back to 1096 AD, von Marstaller. I think it's von Marstaller. Crusades, Roman Catholic Crusades, trip. And so if you take into account that 1096 was quite possibly 96, JJ Vance got into this last night. It was his birthday, so he pre-recorded a show, right? And he talks about how there's like Appalachian connections to him and JD Vance, right? And that a lot of people are kin that don't even know it. Kinfolk, meaning it spreads out. Like Philip Marsteller may not even be my direct relative, but are all Marstellers, Maztellers, and Mastellers. And then there's like a Maztiller. There's derivatives of this. The British sort of broke up, right? Mistranslated, or just to identify one person. Like, do you see how common it must have been at that time with the lower population if 2 people out of the 6 that were pallbearers for George Washington's funeral were Marstellers? Well, and on the East Coast, there's a whole huge get together. I mean, this was 25 years ago. There was like 500 people who got together. Now it's probably thousands, you know. So it's a big tribe of peoples, but it comes from 4 base males who came in, maybe really base, like base-based males who came into the U.S. That wasn't the U.S., 13 colonies. And then, of course, you know, you have the Civil War, the 11, you know, for some reason, after my lineage was so tight with George Washington in business, in every way, friends, belonged to the whole Christ Church, same church, everything, right? They're both members of the Society of the Cincinnati, Philip Marsteller and George Marsteller. In fact, they refer to him as George Washington Marsteller. But these are my relatives because all of the Marstellers and Mastellers are related. But there's like a fork or a break off where my lineage is related to Philip Marsteller, who was not a Mason. He was the only pallbearer that was not a Mason. And I think it almost seemed like that's kind of a weird one, right? That's something that deserves a deep dive on its own. Like, why was he a member of the Society of the Cincinnati, but why was he not a Mason? It leads you to think, well, was he something else, right? Was he part of another sort of select group of people, initiates? But anyway, I'm going to catch my breath because I've had quite a day so far. I'm probably going to do another live where I do, I'm doing another workout. I'm considering what I'm going to be doing. It's weird, like I'll feel in the morning like all my large muscles are completely exhausted. Like I've been doing back and chest, right? But later on, after I've done, like I did lower back, those hip swings, glutes, dual leg squats, and then rows, I get enough blood flow and enough of a stretch to go, okay, wait, I feel good enough to train my chest again. And I realized this when I was a professional trainer and I didn't have time to even work myself out because I became so busy. I had 65 clients and I was training people. I won a lawsuit, so I'm not stretching it out. I worked 17 and a half hours a day. I just constantly worked. How did I do that? People scoff at it, and I'm like, I drank protein powder, right? I would make protein drinks. I would do those quick pure protein shakes and buy a whole flat of them, and I would sip water and then go to the bathroom and take a leak every 1 to 2 hours. And then when somebody did a no-show or they showed up late, right, which often was the case, you'd find me over there doing a power workout, and I realized that I was able to keep up on my fitness much better doing those micro workouts, right, those minimal workouts, and then doing like a full workout whenever I could. But even if I just continued on with those really intense workouts, it would suffice, you know. I would skip the rhetoric of like building up and doing a slow, and then I would also work out with my clients sometimes. Like I'd be showing them, demonstrating stretches and things like this. So it all worked in together. But I was predominantly in gluconeogenesis for long periods of time, at least 5 days out of the week. I stayed in predominantly gluconeogenesis. It wasn't ketosis. It's gluconeogenesis. I wasn't taking in fat or carbohydrates. And after a while, your body realizes your brain's fat. And you start to have the weirdest reactions going on when you get too lean. I was extremely lean. And I'd say too lean. You know, I got to this place where the vascularity, I would literally get dizzy when I would work out, you know. So I really appreciate the ketogenic diet from a standpoint like that. But my training from those days has always been, you're going to train all day. If it's aerobic, you're going to be walking all through the day. I'll go outside, I'll walk around the track. I'll walk to the park that's a mile away from here, walk back, that's another mile, right? If I walk around the park at all, the whole park is like a mile around. And then I showed where I'll just hang the TRX, so we can go outside and do that, right? Which I'll do, but I wake up just going. It's like if I have a space to work with, I just do it. I've walked 1,700 miles doing exactly what I'm showing you right now. Like I have documented on this channel, but mainly on Rogue Beast Warrior, where I show how many miles I went. And I did this base of 3 months, and I walked almost 7-8 miles every day, right? But then it ramped up to where I would start to do even more. Like I would do full-on marathons exactly like this. Because I can cook, I can drink water, I can take in my supplements, I can do circuit training and break off in the other room. I can, the shape that I got in, I was mainly doing bar dips, push-ups, pull-ups, rows, just like inverted rows off the dip handles, right? Jump squats. I mean, there's not really much more. And then super band, like side laterals and things like that, and a few curls, but not much of that. And then overhead presses with. So now I'm doing, which I may do this evening. I may catch some inverted shoulder presses, where I'm doing shoulder presses with my body weight. A couple of days ago, I did 6 sets of 6 reps, which was okay. You know, it was a lot of upper chest around the clavicle area, and then front delts, but I was getting the medial delts in there as well. Like some really well-known bodybuilders didn't even touch military presses, like Sam Vanu. Some really notable, Scott Wilson, his shoulders would take up every single exercise he did to where he couldn't build up his chest. So a lot of these people, they showed how they would do, like for me, a modified fly has always been way more efficacious to build up the chest than any pressing movement, right? To really bring out the definition of the chest. I'm also going to be doing some track running over there at the park. I'm going to be doing some sprinting, you know. I really want to try and test out the sprints and just see where we're at. These aren't the shoes for it. I don't really have the apparel or the shoes, but I'm going to go for it. And I'm a little nervous about leaving the camera over there because it's kind of in the barrios, like quite literally. So I don't know how I'm going to do that. I've been thinking maybe just go down to the beach. I'd like to get more beach shots, more beach training, and maybe get some kettlebell work on the beach. But I've got to get these channels up and profitable on some level if I'm going to be able to do that. And this one is just my tertiary channel. This is just where I throw stuff up that I wouldn't throw up on either channel, but they're things that come to me that are of high interest, you know. And then how this channel started was I was just doing notes to myself, right? I was kind of like, well, I kind of want to document and just clock that, right? That I was thinking about this, that I was able to express this thought or that thought, And a lot of times, like when we're in the gym or we're working out, we're running, we're walking outside, we want to be able to remember something, and then it just slips our attention and we don't even remember what we were thinking. So a lot of that conjecture is able to just be recorded here. And I do go back and listen. I kind of want to know, what was your state of mind? What were you doing? What were you eating? How'd you do it? You know, it's amazing how we lose track of that. In other words, things become so popularized. We try something. We might order a supplement randomly and then wonder why in the F we ever ordered it. And then you watch yourself later and listen to, you know, yourself in it, talking about what you're doing, what the current status is. And it seems so foreign, right? You don't, you're doing completely different things, right? And then you begin to see how there's sort of an amalgamated base that works, that you stick with, right? So trimethylglycine, I thought that I got off that supplement. I highly recommend that to everyone and anyone. It's an amazing supplement along with creatine. The benefits and the data sets don't lie. I would check that out. But I'm gonna chill out, and I think in the future when I have a little more energy and I'm going, well, I'm kind of getting bored with the walking, but I want to go talk about such and such. Let's chill out on the couch, turn on the monitor, and look into some subjects together, like go into Operation GCD, play a couple videos, maybe shut my mouth for a while, and then give my opinion at the very end, right? And then eventually try to possibly reach out to some of these people. I don't really have a unique foothold on an interest, an area of interest. I am very interested in the genealogical aspect, the lineage, but I'm not so immersed in my own family that I have that type of temerity where I'm like, okay, like I don't really care that much. I do care, but I kind of care more about the history than my own family, right? But I would, like anybody, I'd like to know, you know, but there's no way to find out what these people were about, right? There's no way to know. History, you know, to terribly paraphrase Napoleon, it's like history is just like made up. It's an illusion, right? It's a lie. Whoever believes the lie, whoever can propagate the lie and put it out there, right? And so a lot of these forefathers, they were just really master masons or like master liars, right? They're building the fabric of reality off of what they say reality is and how it goes into this blueprint. And we are the odd men out. We are the odd people out. We are the plebeians. We're the proletariats. We don't matter, you know? And I think an uprising is always the solution. And when that honestly happens, I mean, you see this great reset. And so you begin to wonder why all these giants and titans were turned to salt, right? It's biblical, right? It's a trip. It's all there. Oftentimes cryptically written. Right, so we're gonna move on. Feeling good, feeling great. Moving into probably 4th or 5th mile here. Usually in the back of my head, I'm thinking I got to get at least 5 miles in. I start feeling some stress in my upper back, you know, around the cervical and dorsal spine. And, you know, I start thinking, I could do more. So I am going to go in and do, I did 12 sets, and I'm going to go in and do more sets. Kind of wanting to do some shoulders and arms, but when I get to this place where I'm like, dude, let yourself rest a little bit, recover, right? So there is that. But when you're on carnivore, when you're in ketosis all the time, and you're taking trimethylglycine, you're getting every nutrient in, and your body's recovering and repairing so quickly, you get to this place where your goal in performance is just to recover faster. And I really think that that is the key, is to get as much blood flow going through your system, to take in as many nutrients without overdoing it. That's why I've cut back on my beef liver, right? And but I'm sure to do it every single day. It's why I cut back on my sardines, you know, those baits that I'm talking about, because you can get too many nutrients. And even more so, it can be tricky because you might really be pushing it and training a lot and feel great, right? And then all of a sudden you're eating the same foods, your body isn't expending all the minerals and going through the nutrients as fast, right? And you're not eating quite as much. You might have cut back on your macronutrients, and now you have overdone it with vitamin A, or right, or Hem-A iron, or copper, and you really can get yourself into some serious problems doing that, right? Especially when you're doing the orthomolecular nutrition with the high vitamin C intake. Now, I would like to do an even deeper dive on that, but I always try to refer people back to Billy J. Saley, Staying Healthy with, no, I'm mixing that up. That's Elson Hodge. Staying Healthy with Nutrition, Staying Healthy with the Seasons. Very important publications, by the way. There's an Elson Hodge Institute up in Berkeley. Billy J. Saley, she's not even listed on the orthomolecular.org website. Her research and her work somehow got snubbed away. I think it was something because I think she was a lesbian, and I think actually she was snubbed because of that personally. But I don't know anything more. I don't know what happened, but she laid out heal with amino acids and nutrients and did so much valuable research. And then Candace Pert with gamma aminobutyric acid. Well, Billy J. Saley mentions that, and she was on the post-traumatic stress disorder. She was one of the people who coined that phrase. She was on the President's Council for Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder. That was the thing. She passed away in 2011, but she was carrying on that torch for Linus Pauling. And right now, Dr. Thomas Levy is doing a lot of the same type of research. But this has been an area of very, very contentious, very dangerous waters. Dr. Rath, who came from Germany and was for a brief time Dr. Linus Pauling's co-partner there at the Linus Pauling Institute, the Stanford Research Center, back in the early 90s. He took off and went back to Germany. He wasn't even carrying that torch or campaigning for orthomolecular nutrition. I found that really odd. In fact, he broke off into a direction where he started to look at German history and completely and totally non-related subjects. You almost wonder if the guy got paid off or something, or booted out or threatened by the pharmaceutical companies, because that's, you know, that's what Linus Pauling, he was called a senile onset megalomania after winning 2 Nobel Prizes. That was his thing. And he campaigned and believed in high dose vitamin C. He said it can heal the body, it should be at the center of everything. And it makes a lot of sense. But he did succumb to prostate cancer, so that's what got a lot of people wondering about things. But who knows, right? Who knows? But I personally think the reason that his wife and he succumbed to cancer, she succumbed to cancer some 10 or so years prior to stomach cancer. Well, she lived to 77, he lived to almost 93. So it's not like they passed away, you know, ridiculously young, but with all the claims about the vitamin C and the orthomolecular nutrition, and he coined it there just to make it right, like make right. That's what ortho meant, just make it right, to correct, right? So it's like a corrective nutrition schema. And so what he was really missing out on, and what Billy J. Saley stepped in on, was amino acids. That vitamin C, along with B complex, right? But like pyridoxine, niacin, specific synergistic nutrients would allow amino acids to, so amino acids compete with one another And so when you're in a trained state like I am right now, right, and I just took 2,000 milligrams of vitamin C. I've been doing this for months. The cortisol and the gluconeogenesis is driving vitamin C into the cells, right? But obviously I'm in a trained condition where I'm moving, I'm oxidizing, so I'm creating oxidized stress, oxidative stress. And this is what leads toward a lot of the studies on goats, right? Because when I bring up goats, you have human beings, primates, and guinea pigs, right? Supposedly don't produce vitamin C, but in instances we do, right? That whole subclass, right? So there's been a lot of studies on this, but goats will produce the equivalent of 6 to 10 grams per day, any given day. 6,000 to 10,000 milligrams of vitamin C every day. Then when they're under stress, that can go up so considerably that their bodies are producing 60,000 milligrams of vitamin C. It's documented. If they have an infection, if they're under a great amount of stress, you wonder how they get to that, right? Like the doctors probably leave the radio on and throw things at them. It's like, wow, how do you determine that? Some of these mice studies, mouse utopia, right? The secret of NIM. Yeah, so I'm getting a good one in today. I'm feeling great. I hope you're doing good. And, I really believe in metabolic flexibility. I'm not married to carnivore. I'm not married to a ketogenic diet. I see the value. I see the proof. I exhibited it, empirically and showed it demonstratively. But I also saw where, areas where I was lacking, right? The skin was hanging off, right? Sure, I lost 85, 90 pounds, and that's to be expected, right? But if I was taking in more olive oil, like I am now, if I was taking in beef liver where I'm getting all these different nutrients, boosting up the iron levels, if I was only taking very seriously the high vitamin C intake, right, that qualifies for orthomolecular nutrition, which I'm doing now for months. If I was only walking all the time and training intensely, right, and working my entire body every single day, what would happen, right? So I'm putting myself through it. This may seem, I'm just talking and moving, and it seems weird, but it's like I'm doing what you call pacing. And this is one of the main things that keeps people extremely lean. Power meals was one, right? And pacing, constant moving is another. And if you look at people who have been studied with the really high testosterone levels, I'm not saying that I do, but I'm saying I'm keeping my testosterone levels up by doing this. Like people who work on Wall Street, right? They're constantly stressed out. They're constantly moving around. Their entire day is spent in this cortisol, stress-induced state. They're yelling, they're using their diaphragm, they're, passing papers and shouting out from one person to the other and working these deals, multifarious stress, and then 2 p.m. they're exhausted, and some of them try to pretend they can just hit the golf course after and everything's okay, right? Of course, I'm going off of the old school version of Wall Street, but I digress, you know what I'm saying, right? So they did the studies on these guys, and they had very high testosterone levels, right? They're up extremely early, they're doing everything very early, they're probably crashing out pretty early, right? And the other things they do, whether it's like American Psycho, if they're doing cocaine or drinking, Wolf of Wall Street shit, right? Yeah, man, I'm thinking John McAfee. So a lot of these people, they wanted to be heroes. They wanted to be mavericks. But they cheated, And, when you start to look at Stephen King and you have respect for his work and you really look at what promulgated all that, we're moving into a time where people are just demystified. It's like, these aren't our heroes. George Washington wasn't a hero. Lincoln wasn't a hero. Jesus didn't even exist. Like, what are you going to do? Muhammad was just a fiction of your imagination as far as what he really was, because he was a pedophile. Like, there's no other way around it. And I've known people who served, who even contemplating becoming Muslim, right? Converting to Islam, and then they found out about it, and they're like, do you know what's really happening over there? How there's like a houseboy. Like, he's like, I was in there. I was talking to these people. I was witnessing this. I became a part of it. I was over there for like a year or whatever it was, right? At this mosque. I was put at this mosque. And it's like, for a while, I went through this conversion, and then I figured out what the fuck was going on. Like, this houseboy can be essentially taken, raped by the man of the house until he's like 12 or 13, and then he can overthrow the man and take his wife if he wants to. It's like, what kind of crazy shit, Talmudic shit is this? Right? We need better religion. We need better principles. We need to do better. I'm not perfect, but that's what I'm trying to do. You know, we have to go toward purity and perfection. And so I lay that out with esoteric principles of light. I do my best with that, but I think John Frusciante said it best, where, everyone pretty much has to create their own religion. You start to put it together, and then you see commonality and similarities between them. Like John the Baptist, if you really want to study this, go into Ralph Ellis, and really look into this. Michael Tessarian. Yeah, Michael Tessarian, he knows his shit. He's good, So anyway, I'd love to have some conversations with some people, get some panels together myself, but I really got to launch my fitness channel and I'm pretty close to getting profitable with that one. I edged ever closer. Got 300,000 views on that. I've got almost 500,000 views on Esoteric Principles of Light. Both the channel for total views, even though I pulled a lot of the videos off and I don't get credit for that, it's gotten 450,000 views. And then the blog has gotten almost 500,000 views. It's like within like 10 or 12, maybe 13,000 views of 500,000. So there is a lot of viewership, and there's a lot of people thinking about principles and purity, and understanding that purity is real. It is a mark, and that some people do not have it, do not want it, do not crave it, while others do. And it really creates this huge divide, And this is what people like David Hume, Thomas Aquinas, even John Dee, in many respects, was looking into this type of stuff with the hieroglyphic monad and all the freaky deaky weird shit going on there, right? Well, I'll talk to you soon. I appreciate you tuning in, and we will talk to you soon. Be well, be blessed.